Donald Trump has started to fixate on Bernie Sanders. He started to fixate on Bernie Sanders. Yes, judge me by my enemies. When I pointed out that Elizabeth Warren was in a food fight for fourth with Pete Buttigieg, the reason why I pointed that out is because you judge individuals in many respects by their enemies, by their adversaries. And in that case, if she's having a food fight for fourth, then with Buttigieg, well, that's a third and fourth place fight. That clarifies that the top two fight is between Sanders and Biden. Here's the catch. The reason that Trump has started to fixate on Bernie is A, because I suspect that he knows that of everybody in the race, that's the guy that is the wild card. I listen to Trump's rally, and I put this at the bottom. Joe Biden would lose this race. And that's a whole nother video. I listen to Trump. If you are a Biden supporter and you think Joe Biden is going to beat Trump, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Honestly, look at 10 minutes of him going through the Hunter Biden material where he is screaming, "Where's Hunter? Where's Hunter?" And he's going to be wearing a "Where's Hunter" t-shirt. And even goes so far as to joke Joe Biden's mental capacities, saying that Joe Biden oftentimes doesn't know where he is. Now, these are the fights that Trump is going to be using to tear into Joe Biden. And I got to be honest, whatever you want to say about him, he holds a crowd. It's entertaining. He holds a crowd. It is breathtaking, some of the shit that is coming out of his mouth at these campaign rallies. And yet he holds a crowd. He's lying through his teeth, and yet he holds a crowd. I'm trying to make the point to you that in many respects, debates are not entirely policy-oriented, or at the very least, they don't necessarily have to be. And having a debate with somebody and winning that debate is not necessarily because you're right. Optics matter. And I'm sorry, the Hunter Biden stuff is vicious. The problem here is that you can't call Donald Trump corrupt if your name is Joe Biden, because ultimately the Hunter Biden stuff comes up, and it comes up with force. Trump has recognized several things. Sanders has raised more money. Sanders is selling out stadiums. Sanders has more money on hand. And Sanders is surging in the polling. Reuters just came up. National poll. Sanders up 2 to the number 1 spot. Biden down 3 to the number 2 spot. Warren 10%, nowhere near anyone. Bloomberg spends $30 million in order to get 6%. This vanity project. He could have literally, and to put it in perspective, Bloomberg by himself could end poverty with the money that he has, or at the very least end homelessness in the United States. He chose to do a vanity project. My point here is that Donald Trump has started to fixate on Sanders because Sanders has started to gain relevance, meaning people started seeing him as a threat that he has always been and that we have been saying that he has been. Donald Trump going after you like this. Bernie Sanders responded to this, by the way. Bring it. He said, bring it. And what I would tell you is that every last Sanders supporter, in unison, arm in arm, screaming at the height of their lungs, says the exact same thing. Bring it. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support. PayPal patron. This content is brought to you by you because it is instantly demonetized. Now, I read this article, came out on BuzzFeed. Trump has started to fixate on Sanders. Now, what a lot of Sanders supporters know, maybe the mainstream media hasn't figured it out yet, is that the antidote to Trump is Sanders. I mean, if you listen to the speech, he's acting as if he's some kind of commoner, and he's one with the audience. The guy calls himself a billionaire, and yet he pretends to be this kind of blue-collar billionaire. If you're going to put somebody up against him, in this case, especially, if you're going to put somebody up against Trump like this, the thing that neutralizes him is effectively a real populace that can make the argument that Trump has failed. There's no Hunter Biden nonsense with Sanders. You can call him crazy, you can call him a socialist. None of those things have legs. In fact, it's slightly hysterical to even go that route. At the end of the day, what Sanders on that debate stage is going to make the point over and over and over again is that you failed. You are a habitual liar. You are absolutely corrupt, and you failed. You said you were going to end these endless wars. That speech that he was giving right there, he was hitting Sanders because Sanders was against the killing of Soleimani. Make that argument. You can be on the debate stage and make that argument. Yes, bring it. You said you were going to end these wars. You are literally in a country that does not want you there. You are in another country that does not want you there. And you are provoking a war with a third one. That does not look like you're ending endless wars. It looks like you're trying to start another one. Not to mention you're stealing Syrian oil and occupying, again, that territory. That does not look like you're bringing our troops home. Bernie Sanders, within the first year, will bring our troops home. Yes, that is an argument that I am perfectly okay to have. The fact that he calls himself this blue-collar billionaire, there is no question about Sanders' authenticity on this very specific issue. I guess I'm just trying to make the point that if you want to take down Trump, and that's the only thing that matters to you, the person is Sanders. And at this point, the reason that Trump is fixating on him, or at the very least his campaign is going after him, is because Trump knows that to be true also. It wasn't just the rallies that he's been hitting Sanders with. Take a look at this. Trump put out these flyers. Dangerous Bernie Sanders can't be trusted to defend American lives. Sanders opposed taking top terrorist Soleimani off the battlefield while repeating Iranian and Russian propaganda. I don't think Trump wanted to deal with the Russian propaganda stuff. You might want to leave that alone, but it's amazing that he even put that in there. But this is what he's going after. This is the angle that he's going to run with. The guy was a terrorist and I took out a terrorist. Fact, Bernie Sanders is a wealthy fossil fuel guzzling millionaire. He is a millionaire because he wrote a book. Yes. If you write a book, you too can be a millionaire. If you are a senator and have been a mayor and call yourself a socialist and ran for president. As for fuel guzzling, yeah, I mean, he is jet setting across the country because he's going to win this primary and then take your ass out of office. But again, I don't know what this has to do with the price of tea in China. And if you notice, none of this is about policy. Whether the candidate will be Joe Biden or Sanders, this will not be about policy. Sanders will try to drag it back to policy. And to some degree, for him, that works. For Biden, I don't know if it does. I mean, honestly, the Hunter Biden stuff is reminiscent of the Hillary Clinton email stuff. It just stinks. It's corrupt. It's corrupt on its face. And Trump is going to be screaming Hunter Biden to high heaven at every chance he gets. And he's going to be talking about Joe Biden as being not all that mentally there. And just so happen, both of those things are true. Just like the wealthy Hollywood elite, Bernie Sanders lectures Americans how to live their lives while doing the exact opposite. Now, this is what I mean when I say historical. You're comparing Bernie Sanders to the elite, the guy who calls himself a socialist and has been out there fighting for these issues for the entire time. You're going to try to swift boat Bernie Sanders on this notion of authenticity in regards to his support for the middle class. Yeah, bring that argument. You said you were going to fight for the workers, but you didn't do that. You gave a massive tax cut, would put trillions on the backs of the middle class that you said you were supposed to be out there helping. You try to rip away health care for 20 million people. I mean, like, this goes down on the list in the environment. Trump has failed across the board on every foreign policy objective. That's the first point. Think about what he wanted to accomplish. He wanted the regime change in Venezuela. That didn't happen. He wanted regime change in Iran. That didn't happen. He wanted a new deal in Iran, meaning he wanted to change the deal parameters. That didn't happen. In fact, the pressure strategy has gotten to the point where these two countries are exchanging fire with one another. I've said before, you get a war or Trump backs down. There is no two between those things. I've been saying this for like 6 or 7 months now. Because it just so happens to be true. There's no capacity for Iran to make any deals on this case, nor, especially after murdering Soleimani. You have a war, or there's no deal, or you get nothing. So this is what they've been putting out. So they've been attacking him in his speeches and at the rallies, and they've been sending out mailers aiming at Sanders. You're defined by your enemies. The president of the United States is attacking you. That means you've done something correct. He's scared, or at the very least, he knows you're standing there. Right here. This is BuzzFeed. So you're right. That shifted since the start of the year, with Sanders both raising more money than the other Democrats and rising near the top. And some of the polls as an unlikely turn after a heart attack in October threatened to end the 78-year-old's campaign. President Donald Trump's re-election campaign is beginning to aggressively attack and rising threat to his power, Bernie Sanders. The Trump campaign put out 2 statements centered on Sanders this week, and the Vermont senator was at the top of the list of people the president attacked at his first rally of the year in Toledo, Ohio on Thursday night. Bernie Sanders, Crazy Bernie, has condemned the U.S. military strike on Soleimani, the world's top terrorist, Trump said in his first mention of the candidate in the Democratic nomination at the rally. Sanders has led the Democratic field, unequivocally condoning the strike that killed Iranian Qasem Soleimani last week, solidifying his position as the anti-war candidate. Yes, Trump, if you remember, supposedly got elected, oddly enough, as the anti-war candidate. And Sanders has solidified his position on that. Now, the argument needs to be pressed and the argument needs to be made that the position that the U.S. has been taking on these issues has pivoted us towards war. That may be great for weapons contractors, but for the most part, the regular, everyday Americans, I don't necessarily think they like it, even though they don't necessarily let it rule their political opinions, if that makes sense. The Soleimani assassination did not register high, on people's radar. It almost just raised an eyebrow, which is that much more terrifying to me. After all, we just assassinated the leader of another country, or one of the leaders of another country. And the public just kind of looked at it with a shrug. I don't know what's more terrifying, the fact that we did it, or the fact that the public doesn't seem to care. So, and this last part. All right, so right here. Bernie Sanders is dangerous, Trump campaign spokesman Tim Murtaugh told BuzzFeed. He believes that taking out the most vicious terror chief on the planet sets a bad precedent, and he uses the same talking points as Iranians and Russians by calling it an assassination. He cannot be trusted to keep Americans safe. Now, there are legal reasons for the term terrorist or not using the term assassination. The catch is, when Obama went after bin Laden in that hit, they went through all sorts of legal reasonings to justify the hit, because after all, it was literally an assassination. Now, their legal reasonings, they had multiple lawyers and everything else. They did the hit, nobody cared, nobody asked questions. Trump does this hit. He has to call it something other than an assassination, because assassination, believe it or not, is against our laws. It's against our laws. After everything that the CIA was doing was exposed, I think it was the Church Commission, there was an executive order that was passed against assassinations. And so that order, for the most part, by them calling him a terrorist, this is their way of legally justifying the attack. By Sanders calling it an assassination, to some degree, Sanders is making the point that it is against the law. Yes, this is an argument that needs to be pressed. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, right here, the Sanders campaign said the shift by Trump's signaled new concern. It appears the Trump campaign has discovered what we've known all along, which is Bernie Sanders is going to defeat Donald Trump. Mike Koska, the Sanders campaign's communication director, told BuzzFeed. Bernie, who has spent his entire life standing with the working class, is going to spend every moment of the general election reminding the American public that Trump was lying when he said he would stand with them and he would end these endless wars. He's the most corrupt president in American history, and Bernie Sanders is going to sweep him out of the White House. Now, notice the argument. He's authentic. He's been a fighter for the working class his entire life. And he is the anti-war candidate, meaning he is the antithesis of what Trump, essentially he is what Trump said he was when Trump got elected. Biden can't make that argument, which is the problem. You can't bring up corruption. You can't say he's the most corrupt person when you were also in office and you have all this stuff dealing around with your kid that just opens that door. And I don't necessarily think you want to open that door. And hypocrisy is not necessarily bothersome to Trump. So yeah, he can be corrupt and also call you corrupt. And if he's better and quicker on the draw, he is going to make you look bad. And if you look at, if you've seen Biden in those last debates, be scared. Be very, very scared. I'll leave this here. But this is a good thing. This means that they know you're standing there, that they there's some sweat on their brow. This thing that they weren't paying attention to before. Oh, he has had a heart attack. Oh, he's out of it. Oh my God, he's surging. And not just surging, he's surging at a time where the elections are beginning to take place. He has more money. He has more enthusiasm on all of the issues, with the exception of the electability for the most part. He's either dominant first, meaning environment, healthcare. He's number one on those issues on immigration. Again, my point is, he's the guy that takes down Trump. If you want to win, this is the guy to run. And Trump knows it. Donald Trump and his campaign is scared. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting out these hysterical attacks like this. All right, I blunked off for a minute. Donald Smead, do you think if Sanders is the nominee, where's it? Do you think that if Sanders is the nominee, the media would continue to try and shank him? They would at least be super passive aggressive. I think they'll be passive aggressive, yes. I think the Democratic Party at this point can't be trusted. I just don't. Even if Sanders